It is amazing how one last minute change and switching into vacation mode can totally blow up a budget.
Yes, even in Vietnam, you can blow up your budget, unfortunately.
Yes. So in this video, we are going to show you the details, the numbers, what we had planned, what we ended up doing, the change we made. If you saw our last video about Ha Long Bay, that was the change we made, and it was not a low-cost trip. But then again, as most people will say, it's kind of a once in a lifetime, and we were already in northern Vietnam. It didn't really make sense not to go when we had an opening in our schedule, but it still wasn't in budget. So we've said it before, we'll say it again, we'll say it repeatedly throughout our videos if you watch. Vacationing is the most expensive way to travel, and this lifestyle is not a vacation.
Yes, exactly. We were looking at our monthly numbers, and it doesn't look really good.
Now, the good news is we were in Vietnam, which is a low cost area. So, for a lot of people, you'd look at these numbers and think, wow, that's not bad for a whole month. And we were staying in some really nice places, the beach area in Nha Trang, Vietnam, down in the south central area. Stunningly beautiful. Really enjoyed that one, but we were staying in some pretty higher end properties. Um, and then we, went up north, and Hanoi is not an inexpensive place to stay in at least the IHG properties we picked. And then, of course, you throw in that last minute change. So, where did we actually stay? We spent 25 nights in Vietnam before moving on to Japan to get here in time for the cherry blossoms.
Mhm.
So, of those 31 nights in the month, we spent 27 of them in IHG hotels using points. The good news is those are points we bought or earned months ago. We used them, we paid for them months ago. So it's not a cash flow thing. It is a cost.
Yeah, that part was working very well.
Yeah, thank God. Didn't drain our budget or our bank account as much as our budget got hit. So of those 27 nights, though, 18 of them were in hotels with really nice lounges. And as you've heard us say before, hopefully, we worked really hard last year, suffered through some pretty bad hotels to earn lounge access with the IHG brand, which is the Holiday Inn brand, but they also own Intercontinentals and places like that. So some pretty nice hotels. And when you have lounge access, you get breakfast and often some lunch and dinner options, at least
Mhm.
some snacks and drinks. So your food budget goes way down. And in Vietnam, it goes way down just because it's really inexpensive there.
Yeah, and then some of the hotels offer more like a kind of lunch in the middle of the day, and you eat how much as you want when you get or become friends with the people that work in the lounge.
Yes, yes, we get treated very nicely because we tend to stay longer periods of time at these hotels. We get to build up a little bit of a rapport, and if we really like something, sometimes amazingly it ends up being given to us again the next day or a
Hmm.
second helping.
Yep.
Anyway, so we had 19 nights with good lounges where we had very minimal spending on food outside of the hotel, and then we had 9 nights where either the lounge was or poor, or we just had free breakfast, but we ended up eating out the other meals of the day. So that's 27 nights. What do we do the other 4 nights? Well, we end up making a decision to leave a very, very low cost stay we were going to have actually for 12 nights, which was going to completely make our budget really exceptionally low and support a lot of savings for Japan. And unfortunately, between the weather, I guess it was burning season, um, and just, not really enjoying where we were up in the mountains in Vietnam, we decided.
To go to Halong Bay, but I think the biggest decision, the biggest thing that was happening in that specific area, it looks like a burning season, and
Mhm.
also the quality of air,
Yeah.
it was terrible, and it was actually kind of hard to breathe.
Yes. In fact, we sound like we probably were just or still there, but no, this is just a cold we got coming to Japan because it's early spring in Japan and it's been like 50s and 60s at
Mhm.
best. Um, yeah, so we're a little north of Hanoi. Hanoi has some of the worst air quality in the world. It's just a fact. It's a beautiful city, but the air is tough on you. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
we were not enjoying being up there. We ended up going into Hanoi for 4 nights, and then 4 nights down in Halong Bay. So that change basically tripled the cost of points for the 4 nights in the IHG hotel in Hanoi. And then we paid cash for the stay in Halong Bay, and we stayed at the
The Vampiro Halong Bay, which is one of the most stunning hotels that we have seen so far.
yeah, it's a world class resort, and I think if you saw our video on Halong Bay, that's the resort we stayed at, and we show you all those pictures. It's on its own island. It's got multiple beaches and the amazing pool and all the facilities you want in a hotel at a price point that is amazing. I mean, truly, it was a great stay. That's one of those ones. It's a splurge because of Vietnam's pricing, but it's worth it
Yes.
compared to what I looked at some of the other hotels that were on the mainland area in the city. I think it was the right decision. So don't
Yeah.
regret that part.
No, no. And on top of that, Halong Bay is actually a place that, how you say that, you must go
Yeah,
if you're visiting Vietnam, because I mean it's an one in a lifetime experience.
absolutely. We highly recommend going. It just wasn't in our plan for this trip. We were going to come back to Vietnam later this
Hmm.
year when the weather was better, the water was warmer. But because of this whole issue with the burning season, we just needed to get back to the nicer weather and get down to the beach. And, you know, it worked out really well. It just was a complete changer to our budget, as you'll see here in a second. So, the actual costs. What were our monthly numbers? So we get into the first one, the big one, which it always is housing. But because we get a lot of our food included by staying in these IHG hotels with lounges, our housing budget is up, but our food budget is way low comparatively. So we
Hmm.
try to lump those together. You can kind of see what our costs are with those. Um, so anyway, we spent 4 nights at Halong Bay,
Hmm.
and it was what I consider to be a steal at $110, $115 a night. So we actually end up paying with taxes and fees and everything $450 right about for what is the top rated hotel in that area, and totally worth it.
Hmm.
So the other nights, the 27 nights we spent in IHG hotels,
27 nights for 444 thousand points.
yeah.
Yes.
So that's 16,000 plus points per night. And if you know about the IHG points, if you've watched us before, it's a half a penny to buy the points. And so that's $2,220 for those 400,000 points, or $86 or well, $82 a night for those points nights. And that sounds like a ton until you realize that more than half of the month we almost had no food costs because we were eating at the hotels almost all the time.
Hmm.
And in Vietnam, you could go out and have a nice lunch for $10, $12 easy.
Easy. Yes.
And that's not even eating like a banh mi. That's eating a full meal, Indian burger, whatever we felt like.
Hmm.
So anyway, so the total was $2,670 for our 31 nights of accommodations, that's the $86 a night. Now, if you watch the previous videos, you'll see we were staying in the $40, $50, $60 a night. So this is a huge jump. And
Hmm.
it wasn't all of in Pearl. We stayed in some very nice hotels. You stay in intercontinentals in Hanoi and areas like that. It goes up pretty quickly.
Yeah, but the hotels are beautiful.
Yeah, they were spectacular. The food was great. I mean, we loved them, but you know, we knew the month was going to be a little higher, but we kind of blew the budget up by switching to vacation mode. So,
Hmm.
um, what really happened was we took our eight of our inexpensive nights for the month that we're going to reset our budget and turn them into 8 of the most expensive nights we could have, and that's where we ended up. So the rest of our actual spending,
Hmm.
what are the other two items that are we really drives our costs?
I would say maybe clothing.
Mm,
Not really. Okay.
not generally. We spent.
Well,
It turns out we actually spend about the same amount every month on clothing. If we have to buy something big like new shoes, we end up buying less clothes. And then vice versa. If we aren't buying shoes, we go ahead and splurge on some clothes.
but I know what it can blow your budget very easy and without, out of the blue if you get sick.
Yes, that was definitely one of those things that did hit our budget. We'll talk about that in a second. But no, the other two big items we generally have is well, most people have is food
Mm-hmm.
and transportation.
Oh.
So one of the reasons we slowed down our travel beyond slow travel, which is monthly, we actually spent 3 months in Vietnam, or almost 3 months in Vietnam, because we cut our transportation costs way down by staying in each country longer periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was a month where we flew from Nha Trang down on the south side to Hanoi, then took a car up to um, Vinyen where we were staying up the mountains, and then we took another car back down to the city, and then we took another private car out to Halong Bay, and so there were a lot more transportation costs this month than we
Yeah.
normally get. Plus, we then had our flights at the end of the month to get to Japan to start this part of the trip. So,
Mm-hmm.
food wise, we spent $755 on food. Now, $25 a day is not bad.
Mm-hmm.
But most, you remember, more than half the month we stayed in hotels that gave us food. So we spent a lot. And what turned out was this is the time of year we have two birthdays and
Mm.
three
Yes.
three anniversaries. We can explain that another time. But
Yeah.
um, first date, wedding ceremony. So we ended up having a celebratory dinner at that Vin Pearl Resort.
Yes.
It's about the most expensive place you can eat, probably in Vietnam, short of a couple of French restaurants in Hanoi. So we did kind of blow up the budget for food, but still, $755 is not an outrageous amount of money in a month.
Mm-hmm.
Transportation, on the other hand, we went from spending less than $120 last month to 600.
618.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that
Mm-hmm.
was our flights from Nha Trang to Hanoi, the car back and forth, and our flight to Japan. So in the grand scheme of things, not bad. And we do budget for that flight to Japan out of a different separate monthly budget. But still, from a numbers perspective, it all looks like that. Now, the rest of the monthly costs were pretty close to normal. As you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
clothing.
Yeah.
Clothing, we spent $267, but half of that was from new shoes for me because we buy really good walking shoes because we walk all the time.
Yeah.
And
Highly recommended the Hoka.
yes, so we have the Hoka shoes.
And they're not very, very cheap. So it's worth it because they stay with you for more than 6 months
Yeah.
walking the way we walk.
Yeah, and I did get almost 6 months out of mine, and I
Mm-hmm.
try to run some too.
Yeah.
And then we did have to pick up some warmer clothes, a couple sweatshirts and pants to come to Japan because, as we said, it has not been super warm. Had some really beautiful days. We've had several days where it's been just flat out cold.
Yeah, even if the sun is out, some of those days were very, very cold, and we have zero winter clothes. So
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
And we don't have the room in our bags to carry them, so they will not be making it out of Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Rest of our costs pretty normal. SIM card $60 for the two in Japan. Personal care, which includes like vitamins and massages and a few other things. We did spend 104, but what's down from what we spent before, so that's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then $40 for kind of the miscellaneous laundry and stuff because Vietnam is so cheap to get your laundry done, wash fold services.
Yeah.
And the one you mentioned earlier was medical. We did have to go to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and we spent $260, and we've been waiting for the doctor's report in English so we can submit our claim and get reimbursed. So actually back that out of our numbers here at the end, as you'll see.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that total up for the month?
Oh, I almost want to cry. It's pretty big number.
No,
Well, at least for us.
For Vietnam.
Exactly, for Vietnam. Yeah, we weren't expecting to spend that much, but the total number is 4,774.
Yeah. Now, we are going to back out to the $260 for the medical on that one. So the final number is 4,514. And again, for us, we have a $4,000 budget, but we also have $700 in like insurance and other costs that are fixed. So really, we're trying to live somewhere around $3,300 a month, and we were under that significantly the first 2 months. So to blow it over that, the third month was quite the shock when we did the numbers. So 31 days, $4,514 is $146 a day versus our $110 budget for housing, food, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, eh. So again, it happened because we left the low cost, budget balancing, plan stay up in the mountains for, a couple of splurges. And as I keep saying, we went vacation mode.
Yeah, but one thing I want to say is, unfortunately, this type of situations happen very well. I won't say very often,
No.
but out of the blue. I think it's very important that you keep that in mind.
Yep.
That is something that it change your plans very quick.
Oh, we've had this happen in Airbnbs and everything else where,
Mhm.
if the place isn't up to standards, you don't want to stay and be miserable. And especially when you're staying a
Mhm.
longer period of time, in this case 12 nights, was just longer than we were willing to put up with. And it seems horrible, but we've done the same thing in Airbnb where we had a whole month booked and we've left after days. There are some situations you just have to get out of. Now the nice thing is, being diamond members of IHG, we get to call up and they help us cancel the reservation and get our points back. So
Mhm.
the 8 nights that we had spent that we ended up getting back paid for the 4 nights in Hanoi at a very nice hotel, the Intercontinental.
And the other thing, it was a good experience. Well, those short days that we stayed there, because we met in another couple that
Yeah.
they're retired and start to travel around the world. So we become friends with them, and I don't
John,
remember them.
John and Therese.
John and Therese, yeah, from
Oh God, you're gonna twist me on that.
well,
I got the names.
next to Denver. Yeah, you have a good memory.
Wyoming.
Well, Wyoming, from Wyoming. Yeah. So that was amazing because they're very nice people and we're very happy to have the opportunity to meet them.
Yeah, always nice to make new friends. But yes,
Mhm.
they actually spent over 3 weeks up in the mountains. I think maybe 4 weeks up in the mountains, just because from a cost perspective and a way to earn status, that's how you do it.
Mhm.
I'm sure they wish they'd gone in a different month when it wasn't burning season and cold too.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the story. So again, $4,500, way above our budget, about $1,200. Guess how much we saved in January and February below budget in Vietnam? Just about $1,200.
Okay.
Actually, a little bit more than that.
Mhm.
So the next thing we wanted to talk about, though, was like, how does that equate to our slowish, visa length travel, the 90-day period in Vietnam, or 80 some odd days that we were there? Because we do want to look at things more of a longer range, longer term. It's not each month. If we, as you can just see, 3 months in Vietnam, we had 2 really low months and 1 kind of high month. So
Mhm.
how did it balance? Well, doing the math, we had just over $3,000, $3,100 a month for January and February. And then with all of our other costs built in, the fixed cost built in, this month added up to 5,200 plus. So the three together is a little over $11,000, or 50, well, almost 11,500. So we averaged 3,850 with all of our costs built in those 3 months with a $4,000 budget.
Yep. It's at the end,
Yeah.
it wasn't that bad.
Now, I will say that the plan was to save in Vietnam so we could splurge here in Japan because, moving between cities like we are, we're trying to see the cherry blossoms, we're trying to visit different parts of there, we're flying down to Okinawa to meet friends. There's a lot of transportation costs going on in Japan, and Japan is just a little more expensive.
Yeah,
so,
Japan is not cheap.
Yeah,
So
it's not. We're doing it pretty well, and when the numbers come out for April, you guys will be able to see what we did. But it hasn't been terrible. It just we'd meant to save more in Vietnam, so we will be going back to some more low cost areas later this summer and fall because in the end we still got to balance over the year or come as close as we can. So that's where we are. But to put it all back into perspective of the grand scheme of things, our old lives back in Denver, Colorado, back in the States, with all of our costs for housing and a car and gas and food there, which has gone crazy, and everything else, we were spending $8,000 a month. We didn't have a fancy house. We had a nice, townhouse, but nothing great and fancy. We had 1 car. So 8,000 there. We moved to Portugal for over a year. And with a rental, a lease, and then our car and all the other activities, which we were not going crazy. We weren't
Yeah.
like playing golf every other day. We were spending over $5,000 a month. So to live the way we live in all these amazing places in the world for less than even we were living fairly modestly in Portugal.
Hmm.
Our friends there used to think I was the cheapest person ever because I was always worried about the money. And it's like, well, our budget isn't that high.
Yeah.
But so, moral of the story is we are living a better life in luxury hotels, even with a tough month. Tough as in we had to make a decision and we spent more than we planned on. Um,
Mhm.
but we're living in these great hotels, really, being fed well, enjoying life, being able to spend our days exploring
Mhm.
cities. Um,
Learning new cultures,
yeah.
learning new languages, here and there, little little words.
No, we are not learning Japanese, no matter how long, unless we moved here.
But at least we're trying.
Yeah.
But anyway, just exploring the world, I think, is worth it, and we really, really are. We
Yeah.
love this lifestyle.
Yeah. And we just want to be able to show you that it's very doable. And even in months you make mistakes, it really doesn't blow the budget. And if you've watched some of the other really good, retired traveler people, there are folks living on less than we spend in our best month. There are folks living on about what we do, but they have months where they go crazy and do a big cruise or whatever. And then you got people who spend twice or three times or five times as much as we do because they can, and that's the life they lead. It's all possible. We did not retire multimillionaires. We don't have unlimited budgets. If when we blow a budget one month, we are definitely going to balance it back out. So hopefully you can learn from our mistakes. Maybe not
Mm.
make the same ones we did, but when you do, just realize that there are plenty of opportunities, plenty of places you can go that you can catch back up. So
Yep.
thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you did, give us a comment, like, subscribe. We do appreciate it, and we look
Mhm.
forward to you in the next video.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.